Is the biggest blockbuster of Indian cinema currently loading? That is the massive billion-dollar question we need to talk about today.
रजनीकांत और कमल हासन इस बार वो 47 साल के बाद एक साथ आ रहे हैं।
ये तो अब खत्म होने के बाद ही रुकेगा।
Now I understand we throw the word epic around a lot these days. Every other weekend, there is a new pan-India movie promising to be the biggest thing since the 5G internet.
Daddy's home.
But what we are looking at right now, what officially dropped on our timelines from Red Giant Movies, is not just a movie announcement. It is a seismic event in the history of Indian cinema. Two of the absolute greatest pillars of the medium, Kamal Haasan and Rajinikanth, are officially coming back together for a new film. We are talking about a reunion that has been brewing for nearly half a century. From the glimpse that just broke the internet to the crazy history of these two legends, the Director Carousel that got us here, and whether this movie can actually shatter the box office records, let's deep dive into everything about this tentatively titled project. The glimpse does a great job setting the mood. Much like Nelson and Anirudh appear in the Jailer 2 teaser, here too we see them grappling with a dilemma that slowly turns into something completely fresh, highly stylized and incredibly self-aware. Nelson is pacing nervously in a hotel corridor, completely stressed out because he cannot figure out which superstar to approach first. If you look closely at the wall right behind Nelson, there are two specific movie posters, The Godfather and Once Upon a Time in America. Note that Nelson does not put just things in a frame by accident. The vintage posters are a massive thematic statement. Both of those classics are the ultimate defining epics of the mob genre. They are the stories about the original gangsters. By framing his own directorial dilemma against these two cinematic pillars, Nelson is quietly telling us exactly who he's dealing with. He's not just directing two famous actors, he's managing the two absolute OGs of Indian cinema. It perfectly sets up the entire premise of the glimpse. Who is number one?
पहले ये बताओ, हीरो कौन?
पूछ रहे हैं ना, बताओ जी, कौन है हीरो?
It is brilliant, it is meta, it tells us exactly what kind of ride we are in for. But before we go into what this ride is all about, let's look at the behind-the-scenes drama of putting this reunion together, which I promise is as entertaining as the promo itself. Starting with the journey of finding the right captain for the ship, the Director Carousel. Sometime in the second half of 2025, after the release of Coolie, there were reports that Rajinikanth would star in a movie produced by Kamal Haasan's Raj-Kamal Films International, tentatively titled Thalaivar 173. There were also reports that Rajini and Kamal were coming together for a reunion project separate from Rajini's solo project. Very early in pre-production, director Sundar C was brought on board to direct the reunion project, but he eventually exited. Then there were wild rumors that Pradeep Ranganathan, the young director behind Love Today, was taking the reins, but he shut those down pretty quickly, saying he was focusing on his own acting career. The name of Karthik Subbaraj also came around, with reports that he's in the midst of discussions as well. We also had Sibi Chakravarti directing Thalaivar 173, which caused massive confusion online because people kept mixing up that solo film with this giant multi-starrer reunion. For the longest time, everybody expected Lokesh Kanagaraj to direct this monumental project, and it made total sense. Lokesh gave Kamal Haasan the massive comeback blockbuster Vikram, and he recently directed Rajinikanth in Coolie. He was the undisputed choice to handle both of them in a single frame. But Lokesh himself recently clarified the situation.
இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு படம் பண்ணலாம்னு சொன்னாங்க. 1 மாசம் கழிச்சு நேரில் போய் மீட் பண்ணி ரெண்டு பேருக்கும் தனித்தனியாக நரேஷன் போச்சு. ரெண்டு பேரும் ஈக்குவலாக எக்ஸைட் ஆனாங்க கதை மேலே. பட் ஆனால் என்னென்னா ரெண்டு பேரும் நிறைய ஆக்ஷன் ஃபிலிம்ஸ் கண்டினியூஸாக பண்ணிட்டு இருக்காங்க. ரெண்டு பேரும் ஒரு லைட் ஆர்டட் ஃபிலிமாக எதிர்பார்த்துருக்காங்கிறது தான் எனக்கு அது மூலமாக தெரிஞ்சு ரெண்டு பேரும் சொன்னாங்க.
He mentioned that he was indeed approached for the reunion, but there was a creative roadblock. Lokesh is hardwired to make dark, intense, heavy action thrillers. But Kamal and Rajini made it very clear that they did not want to do a heavy, violent bloodbath. They wanted something light-hearted, something fun, something completely different from the current trend. Since Lokesh felt that light-hearted comedy was not exactly his strong suit, he respectfully stepped away.
But light-hearted film எனக்கு பண்ண வராது and அதை நான் ஜெனுனா சொல்லிட்டு.
When the dust finally settled in early 2026, the captain of this reunion project was confirmed to be Nelson. And honestly, it is a stroke of genius. Nelson operates at a very unique frequency. He's a master of the deadpan comedy and dark, quirky humor. He builds tension around awkward situations, which is exactly the kind of light-hearted approach the actors were asking for. He proved with Jailer that he knows exactly how to handle a massive superstar legacy while still keeping the narrative incredibly fun and engaging.
सुपर सर ने भी इसे सेलेक्ट किया है. सुपर सर, कमल सर पे भी ये जज रहा था.
But to truly understand the gravity of what Nelson is taking on and why directing these two men in a single frame is the most high-pressure job in Indian cinema right now, we have to rewind the clock and look at the foundation they built together, the golden era of Kamal and Rajini. Back in the 1970s, under the mentorship of the legendary filmmaker K. Balachandar, these two were practically inseparable on screen. They worked together frequently, with Kamal usually playing the established, refined lead actor, while Rajinikanth, who was still finding his footing, would often play the supporting character, the tragic friend, or the outright villain. Films like Apurva Ragangal, which was Rajinikanth's debut film, then Budru Mudichu in 1976, where Rajini played a deeply layered antagonistic role opposite Kamal. And of course, the absolute musical milestone, Ninaithale Inikkum in 1979. They shared screen space in many more films and were a dynamic duo. But as the late 70s rolled into the 80s, something shifted. Rajinikanth and his popularity were exploding. His style, mannerisms, and connection with the masses were creating a phenomenon no one had ever seen before. Meanwhile, Kamal Haasan was pushing the boundaries of acting and technology, becoming the ultimate chameleon of Indian cinema. They realized they were becoming too big to share a single poster. Producing a movie with both of them was becoming financially impossible for filmmakers, and their individual fan bases were growing incredibly fierce. So they made a mutual, conscious decision to stop acting together. Since then, they have maintained a beautiful off-screen friendship, always supporting each other at public events and milestones, but they never shared the silver screen again. Kamal Haasan actually gave a fantastic analogy at an award show recently to explain their separation and current reunion. He explained that back in the day, the industry kept splitting a single biscuit and giving them each one half. They were young, hungry, and they wanted a full biscuit for themselves. So they went their separate ways, got their full biscuits, and enjoyed them thoroughly. But now, decades later, having achieved everything there is to achieve, they have found the joy in sharing again. They are finally content with just half a biscuit as long as they have it together.
So we will come together.
That is just a beautiful way to look at two absolute legends coming full circle after 4 decades. Now that they are back to share that biscuit, they are doing it with an incredible amount of vintage swagger. And that specific swagger needs a very specific modern pulse to work for today's audience, which is perfectly introduced by the musical maestro behind this project.
इनमें से कोई एक चुनो.
क्यों बॉस?
षणमुगा प्रिया या कोकिला प्रिया?
हीरोइन है.
राग है जी.
We cannot talk about this modern stylish package without talking about the music director, Anirudh. Anirudh is currently the undisputed king of background scores in Indian cinema. His work on Jailer, Vikram and Coolie shows that he knows how to compose theme music that elevates a superstar to god-tier levels. Anirudh's background score for the recent announcement of Allu Arjun's movie with Lokesh Kanagaraj is phenomenal, and even in this glimpse, he brings in an incredible retro-synth vibe. The track playing in the background has this infectious energy that perfectly bridges the gap between the 1980s and today. The energy he brings to the table will be vital because a movie like this will rely heavily on its attitude and soundscape.
थोड़ा बीथोवन का, थोड़ा बप्पी लहरी का,
बप्पी
मिक्स करके एक थीम म्यूजिक रेडी है. सुने क्या?
So with Anirudh handling the adrenaline and Nelson handling the humor,
बट ये 2 finger टेक्निक बहुत मस्त है. इसे ही फॉलो करते हैं.
the biggest question on everyone's mind is, what kind of movie are we actually going to get? From everything we are seeing and hearing, this is not going to be a heavy, tear-jerking drama, nor a relentless, blood-soaked action marathon. The poster released by Red Giant Movies features a tagline that reads, "While some men set the rules, others simply rule." Combine that with the retro styling, leather jackets, classic cars, and the humorous banter in the promo, all signs point to a highly stylized, self-aware buddy comedy. We can expect a ton of meta references. The movie is undoubtedly going to play heavily on their real-life dynamic, their history, and their friendly rivalry. It will be a celebration of their legacy, a love letter to the fans who have waited nearly half a century to see them share a frame again. And a celebration of this magnitude naturally brings us to the business side of things because the expectations are astronomical. Is this movie going to break the 1,000 crore box office barrier in Tamil cinema? And could it possibly become the biggest blockbuster of Indian cinema entirely?
So it's not going to be easy. It's going to be really hard.
Let us be real here. The 1000 crore mark for a Tamil film has been this elusive holy grail. We have seen movies get close, but crossing that specific threshold requires a perfect storm of positive word of mouth, massive repeat value, and universal appeal across all southern states as well as the Hindi belt. But if there is any project in the history of the industry that has a sheer undeniable gravitational pull to shatter that ceiling, it is this one. Breaking the 1000 crore barrier in Tamil cinema is not just achievable but highly probable if the movie delivers on its promise of fun and entertainment. But the second part of that question is much trickier. Can it become the biggest blockbuster of all Indian cinema? That is a much taller order. A film driven primarily by the star power and nostalgic chemistry of two veteran actors, no matter how legendary they are, might face a tougher battle reaching those astronomical all-India numbers simply because the deepest emotional connection to this reunion is rooted in the South India. The younger generation in the northern belts might not have the same nostalgic reaction to seeing Kamal and Rajini together. However, we should never underestimate the power of a genuinely, entertainingly, universally funny and stylish film. The sheer cultural impact of having these two titans laughing and dominating the screen together will make it a blockbuster in every sense of the word. It is the kind of a cinematic event that we are going to be talking about for the next 20 years. We live in a time when cinematic universes and high-octane violence are the norm. To see two legends take a step back, choose to do something fun and invite us along for a ride fueled by pure nostalgia and swag is just incredibly refreshing. The biggest blockbuster of Indian cinema might just be loading, wearing a retro leather jacket and vintage sunglasses. Let me know your take on this historic reunion in the comments below, and if you are interested in watching more, check out our latest video about Vishal Bharadwaj's Shakespearean trilogy right here. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.